Well, good evening and thanks so much for joining us on News at 10 from Adisa Way in Accra. My name is Bright Nana Amfo. Now, let's first take a look at some of the day's news highlights. The Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry wants government to review and cut down the number of institutions and agencies operating at the port. The chamber complained of duplication of your functions, accounting for high cost of clearing goods at the port. As the port go paperless, they're asking that cut down all these institutions. President Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo says his government flagship initiative, the One District, One Factory policy, would create a minimum of 80,000 direct and indirect jobs. The president will cut the sort for the construction of the Akomfi pineapple factory in Akomfi in the central region to mark the start of a nationwide rollout of the policy, called on Ghanaians to support the initiative. At story later on, an Accra High Court has ordered the Ghana Immigration Service to grant Indian businessman Ashok Sivaram a temporary residence permit while he is dealing with his legal issues. The court, presided over by Justice Na Adole Azu, noted Ashok without a visa is an illegal immigrant and subject to deportation, adding the rights of the businessman must be respected. That's the court ruling. And the minority in parliament wants the liquefied natural gas agreement with Equatorial Guinea brought to the House for ratification. Ranking member on the Committee of Mines and Energy, Adams Mutawakilu, insists the deal is an international agreement and the process cannot be considered absolute if Parliament is ignored. They are asking the deal be brought to the House for ratification. And some energy experts have lauded the arrival of the second car power ship, but expect electricity at a cheaper cost, particularly for industrial growth. The procurement of the power ship is a fulfillment of a purchase power agreement with the Electricity Company of Ghana. Electricity supply, and we're told that on the international front, 2 white South African farmers who forced a black man into a coffin have been convicted of attempted murder and kidnapping. Theo Martins Jackson and William Ostuzen were shown in a video on social media beating and forcing Victor into a coffin on August 2016. The two had denied the charges. The pair will be sentenced on October 23. Remember, you can be part of the conversation. Go to our social media platforms on Twitter at News on TV3 and on Facebook, News on TV3. If you're watching us from Bolga in the Upper East region, if you're with us from Sunyani in the Bonafo region, if you're watching us from Akomfi in the Central region, we're grateful for your time. This is News at 10. Let's start with a big one. And our viewers from Akomfi in the Central region, this is where we're starting the night bulletin. President Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo says his government flagship initiative, the One District, One Factory policy, would create a minimum of 80,000 direct and indirect jobs. The president, who cut the sword for the construction of the Akomfi pineapple factory in Akomfi in the Central region to mark the start of the nationwide rollout of the policy, called on Ghanaians to support the initiative.
The Akomfi Fruit Processing Factory is the first of the One District, One Factory initiative to benefit from the $2 billion Chinese Exim Bank loan. President Akufo-Addo said the initiative would employ a minimum of 80,000 people.
The One District, One Factory policy will ensure an even spatial spread of industries. It will promote rapid industrialization at the district level, driven by strong linkages to agriculture and other natural resource endowments to create jobs and wealth.
The president underscored the need for value addition to local produce.
Raw material producing economies do not create prosperity for the masses. The way to that goal, the goal of ensuring access to prosperity, is value addition activities in a transformed and a diversified modern economy.
The managing director of the Ekumfi Fruit Processing Factory promised the company was ready to ensure a successful implementation of the initiative.
And that was a launch of the One District, One Factory project. Now, let's get into the details of the project and speak to the General Secretary of the Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe. He's just joined me on the phone lines. Mr. Kariwe, grateful for your time tonight. Now, let's start from here. For those of you in this sector, agro-processing is key to developing agriculture. So, for what has just happened today, it is very good news for you people.
Certainly, it's a very good news.
Now, if that is the situation, now what kind of engagement should happen between government and private investors in this direction?
Well, I think the business of government is also to ensure that it facilitates the participation of the private sector in the economic development agenda of the government. Now, we have been told that the government is implementing the One District, One Factory, and government will have to facilitate the procurement of land, link the private sector with the people around, create a relationship that will allow those factories to be established first and foremost, and then secondly, for them to be functional and continue to be sustainable. And to do that will require that the factories continue to have their raw materials supplied to them. And in this particular case, where we have pineapple, it means that it is an addition to the existing market to the pineapple producers. We don't still know the details, but it may come to the situation whereby the factory may require a particular variety of pineapple, and that will have to be negotiated between the factory and the farmers to be able to produce that particular raw material or variety for the factory to continue to operate.
I see. Talking about farmers, in the case of the Ayensu Starch Factory, one of the reasons that factory could not be sustained was the fact that farmers got better price on the open market than when they sold to the factory. How do we avoid a similar situation where we find ourselves in Ekumfi? Well,
that is always the major problem between two stakeholders, like raw material suppliers and then the processor of the raw materials. If you take, because when there's an alternative price, which is better than what the factory is providing, the temptation is for the farmers to divert the produce to that better price. Meanwhile, the factory might have, in some cases, committed resources in supporting the farmers who produce. And then if that happens, it means the factory will run at a loss. First and foremost, it will not have the needed raw materials to continue to operate. And then secondly, its investment in the farmers may go to the drain. So since the Ayensu Starch Factory experience is there, I believe in this particular arrangement, they would avoid falling into the same challenges like what happened in the past. So I expect that first and foremost, the factory should also be thinking about creating its own nuclear farm of the pineapple, such that it can have minimum raw material supply to keep the factory running, so that in the event of dispute between the factory and the farmers, the operations of the factory may not necessarily have to come to a halt until the dispute is resolved. Beyond that, it can now create an outgrower relationship with the farmers, where the farmers will produce to supply it. And it requires a continuous relationship and then dialoguing the details which have to be done between the factory and the farmers. But the challenges are real, that there may come a time when the farmers may think that there are other a better market somewhere, and they may attempt to divert, or they may expect the factory to raise the price to a level that the factory may deem it unsustainable or not profitable. And those differences are bound to exist. So they must begin to work to see how they can resolve such challenges when they arise.
I see. Nkrumah's industrialization program quickly comes to mind. All these factories, from the Zuarungu to the Kwaulugu to the glass factories and all that, but all of them ran down because perhaps one reason or the other. Is that we're doing the fact that it is a private-public partnership, can it be insulated from collapse just because it is private-public partnership?
Well, if you look at the challenges that confronted existing factories, which has led to their collapse, they are even now more severe today than before. You know, in those days, economies were closed. Government has total control over how much volume of imports should come into the country, and then who should be given a license to import. So there was this license regime and then quota regime. But today, there's no license regime, there's no quota regime. You know, and so beyond that, Ghana has already gone ahead to liberalize our economy. So you cannot go back and say that you are reimposing, you know, duties or to control the market. So the major challenge that will confront the new industries or factories that will be coming up is when they produce, who is going to take those produce or those products. You know, it's easier to produce, but market is more critical for sustainability. Because when there's no market, and when we talk about market here, we are talking about a market price that is good enough to continue to motivate the producer to produce. And since they are private sector operators, they are motivated by profit. And when they see the profit is not coming up enough, they may as well back out of the whole program. So we are likely to have these challenges. And again, you can see that government, by its own policies, is not inclined to impose tariffs of imports that come into the country.
All right.
Because we have seen some of the tariffs that were existing lifted. So what it will mean is that we are more likely to have more of the imports into the country, and that will compete for the local market. So this is going to be the major challenge. And because we want it to be a long-term program, we should begin looking at how we can create a sustainable market for the factories. I'm
grateful. Mr. Edward Karuwe is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union of Ghana, GAWU, there talking to me. We're still staying on the one district, one factory, the first being construction expected to start. Let's stay in that district because some Pineapple farmers at the Kumfi Nanabing in the district, the Kumfi district of the Central Region, have expressed optimism about the government's step to make their Kumfi fruits and juice processing factory a reality. They believe the factory will relieve them of post-harvest losses, poor sales, and boost employment opportunities in the area. This is a report by Spencer Kwabena Boateng Mensah.
Nanabing is a developing community in the Kumfi district of the Central Region with a population of about 2,000 residents. Residents say, due to inadequate employment opportunities, many of the natives have migrated to seek greener pastures in the cities. Pineapple farming is a major source of employment, but residents say poor sales continue to discourage the youth from engaging in the business. To avoid post-harvest losses, farmers are compelled to sell the pineapples farm gate prices of 1 cedi instead of 3 cedis. The step to establish a fruit processing factory at Kumfi forms part of government's One District, One Factory policy, which is expected to create employment for 5,000 people when in operation. Women are also anticipating that the factory will enhance trading in the area. Committee Chairman of Kumfi Nanabing, Mr. Shaibu, advised politicians to bury political differences and embrace development. Chief of Nanabing, Nana Okofu Jesse IV, is grateful to government and has called on natives of the town who have migrated to return.
And some more news on farming. Rice or palm oil produced in the Setre East district of the Ashanti region attract patronage from as far as Nigeria, but processors are constrained in meeting demands. I will tell you that story later on, but let's go to Suchari in the Dangwe West district. Now, rice farmers here in the Shai Osudoku district of the Greater Accra region, mechanization center as a substitute to a factory for the One District, One Factory program in the area is what they need. The over 3,000 farmers say they record a lot of post-harvest losses due to the lack of the required farming machinery to enhance productivity.
Close to 3,000 farmers work on 3,000 hectares of rice farmland here at Esuchari. Cultivating 300,000 tons of rice in each of the 2 crop seasons gives them 600,000 tons of paddy rice annually. This is even without the appropriate farming machinery. Even though farmers here have embraced government's One District, One Factory policy, they prefer a mechanization center.
Per the area where we are now, it means therefore that we would need a mechanization center where these services at land preparation stages, milling stages, and then harvesting stages will be taken care of. And we have to gather all these machines at a center where the farmer wake up from his house or from wherever he stays and walk straight to a pointed place that this place, if I reach, I'll get access to my problem.
This is one of the areas that have been identified by the Shai Osudoku District Assembly. Here, these farmers have an advantage of a 22-kilometer stretch of the Volta River. Through this, several dams have been developed in the district, which has made irrigation easy for these rice farmers.
There's still the opportunity to and the potential to expand. So if we are able to get more machinery in terms of the equipment they need, they will be able to expand the production. I'm told there's a proposal to that effect.
Before rice farming took over, Esuchari was best known for sugar production. Buildings here at the Osudoku Senior High Technical School were the sugar factory more than 30 years ago. This dormitory block served as the laboratory for the Esuchari Sugar Factory some years back, though it's still serving a positive purpose, providing accommodation for students here at Osudoku Senior High Technical School. It probably wouldn't have collapsed if by then the One District, One Factory policy had been identified and was being implemented. The District Assembly is currently reviewing a proposal which seeks the re-establishment of the defunct sugar factory. For TV3 News, Kwabena Edu Jemfi, Esuchari.
Right, Community Jenfi with that report there. When we come back from the break, we'll tell you that all is set for the NPP Congress. The MG platforms are all ready to bring you live update from there on Kuma FM in Kumasi, Connect FM in Takrade, 3FM and Onua FM in Accra, and on TV3. We'll bring you live proceedings from there. Stay with us when we come back. We'll tell you what's happening there. Now let's stay on the agricultural sector before we move to the NPP Congress. The president of the African Development Bank has pledged the support of the bank to make Ghana self-sufficient in rice production. Government spends in excess of $400 million on rice imports.
Dr. Akinwumi Asesina pledged the support of the African Development Bank to support President Akufo-Addo's vision of a country beyond aid.
That he doesn't want a country that depends on aid. He wants a country that is, beyond aid. So which means that they're looking at how to grow this as an investment frontier and, as a middle-income country. So the kind of things that they will need is to be able to help them to be more competitive in terms of being a destination that investors want to come into.
Agriculture employs nearly 55% of the country's total labor force. From Ghana's total land area of 23.9 million hectares, about 57% is suitable for agricultural purposes. The African Development Bank president indicated Ghana has to be a leader in food and agriculture.
We're also going to be investing heavily in agriculture because, look, Ghana's soils are so rich. If you throw up any seed before it hits the ground, it can grow. And so Ghana ought to be a powerhouse in food and agriculture.
The country spends some $400 million annually importing rice.
That's money you don't have to be spending. And so we're going to be working quite a lot on agriculture. We will support Ghana, especially in its drive to cut the amount of money it spends on importing rice.
Agriculture is the main driving force behind Ghana's economy, accounting for approximately 42% of the country's GDP.
Now we're going to Cape Coast. All is set for the NPP's conference tomorrow. The conference will focus on the future of the party. TV3 can confirm to you that the delegates will be discussing a possible change of appointing positions in the party to elected positions. Now let's join Komna Kluche there in Cape Coast.
The display of posters and others is prohibited at the Congress grounds. Do you think that represents a strong position of the party enough? Because this is even the first time some of them will have to meet the delegates.
Certainly, and at the news conference that was addressed by the party's national organizer, substantive national organizer and acting general secretary John Boedwed a few days ago, he was clear that the party will institute sanctions against any aspirant, national executive aspirant who will campaign or uses a national delegates conference as an opportunity to campaign. And they're certainly not going to tolerate that. Earlier, we were speaking to the national youth organizer of the party, Sami Oku. He was clear about that the party would not even countenance a situation where aspirants will display their posters or stickers on their cars. Some 2 days ago, we reported that one of the aspirants for the national chairman position, Dr. Amwakuba, had his posters displayed at the entrance of the University of Cape Coast.
We checked this afternoon. I think it's been removed though, so at least there's some bit of compliance there. Now, these and many other issues is what's making rounds here. But what we can also say is that the MG Group, TV3, 3FM, Onua FM, Connect Akoma, and MG Digital is ready. We're set up to roll tomorrow. First thing tomorrow morning, you would hear us, you will pick our feet, and we will set the ball rolling for the National Delegates Conference of the new Patriotic Party, the very first one after the party won its 2016 general election.
All right. Kluche speaking to 3FM's Kwache Afre Nyama. The MG is there live, and all our platforms will broadcast proceedings at the conference on radio, 3FM, Onua FM in Accra, Akuma FM in Kumasi, and Connect FM in Takrady in Accra. You can also watch us across the country on TV3. Stay with 3news.com and follow us online. Now let's move on. The confusion in Yenahin over Exton Cubic Group Limited's bauxite concession has caused the company to lose over $40,000 a day. A ranking member of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines and Energy is of the view that the discussions should be moved away from politics.
I expected EPA. The company has provided evidence of permit given them by the EPA. The minister said they didn't have a permit from the minister or the commission. They provided the permit from Forestry Commission that is supposed to issue the permit. And as a result, there was a conflict between the Minister for Lands and Forestry and that of the Asante Regional Minister. I think that politicizing it is not the best option for us as a country. A Ghanaian company that is exploring into the mining should be encouraged if we actually want value for money, because whatever he earns stays here, doesn't go anywhere. It's for the benefit of Ghanaians. If I were the CEO of EPA, I would have done my underground work very well. Invited the company over, discussed with them to provide me evidence, then before coming over. The company just said they were never invited. And I don't think we should run it like that. We should always do it fairly. We haven't done any ratification, but that is what you said. Reconnaissance is different from agreement. They normally don't bring those ones to us. It's when final agreement is reached and they need ratification, that is where. But if the company is still going to do reconnaissance and then decide whether to go in or not, you don't bring it to Parliament for ratification.
And that's a member of Parliament for the Damongo constituency, a member of the Mines and Energy Committee. We're grateful you stayed there to be part of the show. Those of you who sent in your comments were grateful. And of course, my guys in the studio, Mando and Christopher Swa, my cameraman, and of course, James Tete, Charles Alote, John Flagbo, and Joseph Amoncho. Of course, the team together put a good show. The whole production was done by Ebenezer Ejekum Boateng, Studio Director Richard Bruce Lamte. My name is Bright Nanamfo. Have a great night, but stay right here.